All right, I've been wanting to make this video for a few days, but I haven't had the opportunity to. I finally have a moment to record something. So, man, this whole situation with Dricus and Sean Strickland is just, it's so bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this. I don't know if one of them or both of them are like full blown autistic or maybe mildly or what it is, but the situation of, us. I mean, think about it. We thought this whole fight was just going to be pretty boring, right? We wanted to see Dricus fight Izzy, but Sean beat him. But then Dricus should get the title shot. So we're in some weird situation where you got two guys who should be on the same side, right? They should be supporting each other against Izzy, but now they're kind of forced to fight each other. So we thought we would get a bland, like, oh, I respect you, you respect me, let's have a war, whatever. Which we kind of did, but then it turned into Dricus going after Sean Strickland, really in a low blow. Like he went to the dark side. Like I don't think any of us thought that he would go dark side, and I don't know if he took it from Colby or something about, hey, I guess we're all making fun of people's parents and we're all going for low blows, but he went for that. We got this crazy, stare down, all the beef, Sean Strickland crying, all these weirdo, like, I don't know what they are. I'm assuming they're like Gen Z Sean Strickland fans who were like, like after he cried, they were making all these cope arguments about how, oh, well, he makes fun of people, but he doesn't talk about their traumas. And it's like, well, if he's making fun of people, then he's causing traumas, isn't he? I mean, he's the guy crying about how he got beat as a kid, but then he's going around saying that more kids need to get beat so that they would be stronger and not like soy boys, right? And then so we go from there, which the well, actually, before the fight there was like a little meeting between them in some hallway. I think it was Dricus's team and his wife was there, and then Strickland was just effing around there. And then they did this whole like, oh yeah, let's squash the beef or whatever. Same thing in the DMs. They were in there saying like, okay, let's just not talk about this and I won't talk about that. But Strickland was still triggered because he did say that like if he didn't agree to his terms and he kept going in the way he was, he was threatening to actually stab Dricus. So there's that. So he never overcame his trauma. He just, I don't know, he just let some of the emotions out or something. And then boom, now we go into the fight. In the fight, to be honest, I watched it. I had a couple friends there. We were really excited about it. We watched it. It wasn't a war in the way that I've seen wars. I mean, if you want a war, you look at Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner. That is the best fight of all time, especially considering what kind of fighters we had back then. We weren't used to wars. It was usually like, one-sided whatever, usually back then. And that, I would consider that a war, right? Both guys are bleeding, both guys are going for it, they're completely exhausted. They've been, the fight's been going all over the place from the floor to standing, punches, kicks, everything you could think of for all the entire fight, right? But in this fight, we actually, is like, Strickland had, like, when he fought Izzy, he used the jab and then he used the 1-2, which is where he dropped Izzy, and then he threw a left front teep kick to the like lower abdomen. That's all he really threw that whole fight for the most part. But in this fight, he had even less weapons than that, which was essentially he just threw mainly a jab for almost the entire fight. And sometimes he would, if he got hit, he would try to counterpunch with like a weird looping right hook, which was landing in the 5th round, but for the whole fight, it wasn't really landing. He didn't throw really any kicks. He didn't go in for any takedowns. It was essentially just a jab versus everything that Dricus threw at him. Now, Dricus did not look good. Maybe it's because, people keep saying he has an awkward style. I'm not going to say that he doesn't. But in some ways, it's like awkward is kind of like the positive way of saying it. Like the negative way, or maybe the real way, would be to say that he's just kind of sloppy. And he's just a weird fighter because obviously he could fight all 5 rounds. He was doing it. But by the end of the second, he looked like he was totally gassed, totally out of it. I'm assuming it's because he doesn't know how to breathe properly. It's only recently that they actually did surgery on his nose and actually opened it up. So I'm assuming he doesn't actually he doesn't like know how to breathe out of his nose. Like he's so used to breathing out of his mouth that, you know, in a situation like that, he's going to go back to what he knows, which is mouth breathing. I think that's why he's so exhausted. And, you know, the reason why it works for him is, one, obviously he's a tough guy, and he's really strong. So he's able to push through, even though he's exhausted, he's able to push through, and he's got power. You know, he took out a lot of guys, and he's strong. You could clearly see he's strong. He could grab you, and then it's not easy to get away once he does that. So he's able to use those as a means to continue pushing forward. Which, you know, Strickland, again, Strickland can't fight on the back foot. If you watch his fights, he's really only dominating when he moves forward. And usually he accomplishes this by getting his jab going, and usually his pace. It's mainly the pace. He doesn't have power. He's the first guy to tell you he doesn't punch hard. So he has to use the pace. He has to keep the pace going. But the problem is, if a guy stands with Strickland and decides to start throwing, and that guy has power like Cannonier, like Dricus, there's really nothing he can do. He's just going to keep getting back. He literally goes into defense mode. He pulls out his shield, and he'll just deflect and guard everything. But the problem is, Dricus didn't care if he landed. He was just going to keep throwing. Like if his punch was blocked or parried, if he threw a kick and it got checked, or if he didn't land, he didn't care. It was all about moving forward, putting the pressure on, and the more strikes you throw, eventually you're going to land. It doesn't matter how good the guy is, even Bruce Lee and all this stuff. If you throw enough punches at him, you're going to land a couple. And especially if you have power, then that's dangerous. And we saw that in the fight. I mean, I think the real clear reason why you could say that Dricus won was because he fought like a mixed martial artist. He went for, I think almost, I mean, how many takedowns did he get? He got like 3 or 4 in the whole fight. Now, he didn't do anything with it. So if you want to argue and say like, well, who cares he got the takedown? I mean, he did nothing with it. Then, that's fine. I'm not really choosing a side here. I mean, from my perspective, in the moment, sitting there, I wasn't taking a side because I like both guys. But in the moment, I thought Dricus won. He was just more active. He was moving forward. He got a bunch of takedowns. And I thought the striking was about even. Neither guy got hurt, really. Neither guy got dropped. Neither guy really got dominated in any round. I would say clearly that Strickland easily won that first round. You could clearly see he was just out jabbing Dricus. Dricus didn't know what to do. And then eventually he was able to mix things up by being a mixed martial artist. He was throwing kicks. He was throwing a lot of punches. He was moving forward. He was going for takedowns. All of that, by turning it into a mixed martial arts fight as opposed to a boxing fight, he was able to, now Sean couldn't really land the shots he wanted to because he was worried about the takedown. He was worried about, the kicks coming, the punches. Dricus was landing a lot of punches, but it's weird. It's like you need to have some sort of you need to throw some sort of asteroid left hook in order to take out Strickland, because he was eating not any he didn't land too many shots where his head was moving backwards. It was mainly on the face. A lot of the punches Dricus landed he kind of avoided most of the punch and then got hit at the end of it. It kind of seemed like. But the problem was he just wasn't active enough. Maybe in a boxing setting he could have won this fight, because you'd say, well, he landed more strikes, and then Dricus, most of his shots were blocked or parried. And you'd have an argument too if you want to say Strickland wins, because you could say that, well, if this were a real fight, if this were a school fight, right? 2 kids are fighting and a bunch of kids are just staying back watching it happen. You at the end of that fight, you'd say that Strickland won, because look at Strickland's face, right? I mean, there's an argument to say he got headbutted, because I've seen the video, and I know some people are saying, oh, it's clearly an elbow. You don't know that, because you can see that Dricus comes up with his head first, and there's head contact. Now, we don't know if that was a headbutt or if that was just him putting his head up there just to gain kind of grappling kind of posture control, or if a headbutt actually happened. We don't really know. I mean, this is a situation where someone wants to get dominant position. They're going to get there as quick as possible. And, if someone is positioned in a way where they can get hit, that could happen. We don't know if the headbutt caused the cut or the elbow. There's no way to find that out, because there's not going to be a camera angle that's going to show, because like the headbutt happened and then immediately after the elbow came. So we don't know what caused it. I mean, there's not going to be a way to know really, unless they have a specific moment where you can see the head clash, and then right when he goes for the elbow, you'd see the blood. So does Strickland have a point here about the headbutt? Sure, but if you want to look at this from like a sports context, if the ref doesn't see it, it's not illegal. Is kind of the rule essentially. So if you're not trying to cheat when you're in the ring, you're not really trying to win, because the rule is he has to see it. So if you're landing illegal shots, but the ref doesn't see it, then it's not illegal. So I don't think Dricus went for the headbutt on purpose or anything like that. Maybe he did. I don't know. Who knows? A lot of people get pushed into a corner and they turn into people you never thought they would be. But again, sports-wise, ref didn't see it. He didn't do anything on it. You just had to fight through it. And I know Dricus, Sean was actually complaining, saying he lost the fight because he couldn't see. Again, this is a part of the sport. I mean, there's been so many fights out there where guys are literally just pouring rivers all over the place. And, I like to hear people talk. Like, I want to hear what they have to say. Too many people are like, oh, excuses, excuses. I'm like, I want to hear what they have to say. Like, if something was going on in the fight, if you had injuries, like what happened. Like, I want it to be real though, of course. I don't want them to just, it's excuses if they're just making stuff up. If they're saying, oh, I had some injury, and then you find out actually he had no injury or whatever, right? I want to hear the whole story. I don't want to just see the fight happen and just assume that both guys were at their best when they weren't or whatever. It's just weird. I see a lot of people doing this with the whole Volk thing, and I think I'll make a video about it, because it just kind of bothered me a little bit, because it's just, these casual fans are just so annoying. But look, I'm not taking a side on this fight. If you're a Sean Strickland guy and you think he won, or you're a Dricus guy and you think he won, it was a close fight. I mean, even Dana gave it to Strickland, and I think we all know that Dana's not a huge Strickland fan by any means. So, I mean, I don't think a rematch should happen, just because it's this whole thing was so bizarre. I kind of want it to just be over. Like, I'd rather just, like, okay, let's have Strickland fight somebody, some high-up contender. Let's have him fight Vettori, right? Or Cannonier. He could rematch. And then he'll, whether he wins those fights. And then whatever Dricus does with Izzy, and the winner of that will get Sean. I mean, it makes sense to me at that point, because Izzy would probably want to get the rematch, right? So he could kind of, clean his whole slate. And then Dricus would want it too, because again, he knows that the fight was close. It's a little weird how Dricus is acting online, doing this whole Sean is obviously pretty pissed. He's putting out his concerns. He's showing like, well, I outstruck you according to these stats, and he was talking about the headbutt, and Dricus isn't the real champion. And then Dricus is like in the comments saying like, keep crying and stuff. And I'm just like, look, dude, if you're gonna be the bad guy, be the bad guy. If you're gonna be like, I'm gonna choose a high ground and I'm gonna be the better guy, because again, Dricus was telling Strickland, he was basically saying like, I'm not gonna stoop low like you. Right? Like, if you're the one who has trauma pain, and then you're going to go take that pain out on other people, that makes you a hypocrite. But he said that he's had things happen to him, but instead of taking it out on other people, he would rather like, try to make sure that things like that don't happen. But then, so he's trying to take the high road, essentially, is what he's been saying. But then at the same time, he's been choosing the low road quite a bit. So, I mean, look, just be the bad guy, be the good guy, choose your archetype, your character, and then just be it. Because this whole thing has just been so awkward, where, at first they didn't care about each other, and then they hated each other, and then they like, oh, let's be friends again, but hey, if you talk, I'm going to do this, and then we're going to fight, and then, oh, you didn't really win. And then, like, I could understand Strickland doing that whole thing, right, about how, he actually won. He did the same thing during the Cannonier fight. He thought he won that fight, and he got really angry about it. So he has a history of this. So it's kind of fine. But Dricus doing this whole, oh, just go cry again, and going after him and making fun of him. Is just like, especially at the Canada bar. He was at that bar, and they had that thing up, and they were like, Strickland, or Dricus is Strickland's daddy and all this stuff, and they were like laughing and drinking. And I'm like, dude, choose what you want to be. Don't say you're going to take the high road and then you're actively choosing the low road. And then, at least Sean is, he's also hypocritical, but like, we're not really focusing on him right now. It's mainly like Dricus is now being a weirdo, trying to choose like, I'm going to be like the good guy, bad guy, being this douchebag. And I don't know, it's weird. I've heard some people talk about how they think, they might actually be rooting for Adesanya in a rematch just because of how Dricus has kind of been kind of exposed in some ways. It's kind of like a D-bag, and it's like, I mean, I wouldn't do that. I don't like, I don't, I will never like Adesanya, especially after what he did to Alex Pereira, his family in the second fight. That was just the most petty, like, pathetic thing I've ever seen. And I think that karma is what created this whole situation with it. Manifested Sean Strickland getting the title fight. It manifested the dog stuff, all of the whole army that went after him, that destroyed him. He was destroyed to such a point where he doesn't want to come back until 2027. I mean, think about how jacked up someone is on a mental, physical level, that they don't want to return to the sport for years. I mean, talk about a beating, But yeah, this situation is just so bizarre. I mean, if you guys want in the comments, please comment and say, who do you think won? Put a reason why. Don't just say Strickland won because whatever. Say Strickland won because, and then here's my reason. Or Dricus won and here's my reason. I'd really like to hear what you guys think. Also, what do you think about this whole Dricus situation, how he's handling this victory? Do you guys think he's fake too? Or is he just, I don't know, drunk on success or something? Because, I mean, his behavior after this whole win is just been very bizarre to me. And I don't know, maybe a bunch of these guys are just different levels of hypocrisy, it seems like. But yeah, this whole thing has just been really bizarre. The fight was really kind of chaotic, if you ask me. Like Dricus looked real sloppy. Sean looked real sloppy, only throwing a jab for the most part, being overly defensive. This didn't really seem like a fight where, at least for Sean, where he really was like, hey, take it to the champ, and then or to the challenger, beat this guy up. He was making fun of you. He was doing all this stuff. Take him out. Use your anger, right? It was like, I'm just going to keep jabbing. I'm going to be super defensive. Just try to out jab him. It's like, what is going on? It's like, aren't you supposed to be mad? You were threatening to kill this guy, and then you're like fighting like overly defensive. This is like the Leon Edwards fight all over again. This guy's saying all these things about you. You want to attack him. You get a chance to attack him, and then you do nothing. It's just so bizarre. And I mean, whether Dricus won the fight or not, I mean, you could clearly tell that he was pushing the pace. He was trying to win. So I mean, you got to give him, hats off to him. Even though he looked like peanut butter and jelly after the whole fight. I mean, he looked horrible. I don't think he's ever had a beating like that. And his whole face was just rearranged just by jabs. And then you look at Sean, and other than possibly the illegal cut, he looked perfectly fine. So, it muddied up the whole fight. I could see why people want a rematch, just because it's like this whole thing was so bizarre, But yeah, put what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think won? Why do you think they won? And really, what do you think the future is for these guys? Like, who do you think they should fight next? Do you think there should be a rematch? Where does Izzy play into this? Where does Alex Pereira play into this? Because he also called out Dricus, and I don't think he should go back down just because, I mean, he had to kill himself to go back down. But at the same time, this is a whole situation, right? We got like this whole like love triangle between Izzy Adesanya. We have Dricus in there. We got Sean Strickland now, who's in the mix. And then we got Alex Pereira he's got his sniper rifle, wondering if he should, jump back in. And it's just such a bizarre situation. So I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll see you guys on the next video.